scores!
Welcome in, everyone, to this week's episode of What's Bruin. It has been a week for our Boston Bruins. What a week it's been. I am joined, as I am every week, by my co-host, Dom Tiano. Dom, are you, I can't say excited, but are you ready to spend the next hour plus talking about these Boston Bruins?
Sure, it's been a hell of a day. Woke up this morning, started laying a new kitchen floor, then decided to go to Sarnia for a hockey game and catch the Kitchener Rangers and the Sarnia Sting. Kitchener won 5-0, and then rushed home to get ready to do this show. So I'm always ready to talk some hockey.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what some of the folks in the chat have to say tonight because I will admit it's getting harder and harder to try to keep the positivity going about this team. It seems like it's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And given the fact that they are an NHL 500 at 8-8-3, that's pretty much what it is. 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. How you feeling about them?
To put it into 2 simple words, they suck. Simple as that. A lot of reasons why. I talked to a coach last week. You probably saw me put it on Twitter. Used to coach in the NHL, very respected coach at a different level now, a winning coach, and knows what the hell he's talking about. And what I put on Twitter basically was that I asked this coach if he had a chance to see the Bruins, and he said yes. And I asked him what his thoughts were, and he said, well, my team's got practice in 30 minutes. I don't have any time.
So he's got more than 30 minutes worth of things to go over with what this team's doing.
Well, no, I was there for the team's practice. Just wanted to watch a couple of guys, and we talked afterwards, and I made some notes here. What he had to say is wrong with the Bruins, and I'll go over them, give you a chance to give your thoughts on it. And if anybody has a comment, put it in the comment section, and we'll get to it. So they're not in any particular order, but
okay.
One of the things he said is wrong with this team is they seem to lack stamina. And, the average NHL shift length, I think, is 46.9 seconds, something around there. His opinion is that they can't seem to go all out for a full shift. They're left chasing, scrambling, out of position, and giving up too many odd man rushes or not being able to get where they're going. So I think stamina is a big issue with the team at this point. I don't know what you think about that.
I think some of that has to do with, I think some of their numbers are skewed because you're going to see the guys who are on the ice for a large amount of ice time, penalty kill, power play, your Marshands, your Coils, like those guys. I don't want to say they're going to skew the numbers because obviously there's only 60 minutes of ice time to go around per game anyway. But when it comes to anything where you can track the time of the ice time and know, 5-on-5 versus 4-on-3 versus 4-on-5, 5-on-4, all that stuff. I think the amount of penalties that they're taking skews a lot of that data because a
You're
guy like
missing
Marchand,
missing the point. It's not about total ice time. It's about shift length. Okay, when you're 5-on-5, the average shift is 46.9 seconds. You obviously try to reduce it on the PK to 30 seconds. The power play, you go a minute to a minute 15 with your top unit. Okay, it's the shift length, not the total time on ice, because some guys are built to play 20, 25 minutes a game. Some guys are not. But it's the length of the shift that he's finding an issue with.
is he saying he thinks that they're too long?
No, it's not the length of the shift. Basically, what he's saying is they're not in shape. They're unable to complete a full shift.
So they're not able to go 50 seconds.
Right. When you know that when you're tired, you make mistakes.
Yeah. I think it comes down to all of it being a perfect storm together. It's not a simple answer as going, well, if they took shorter shifts, then they wouldn't make as many
No,
mistakes.
it's not. I'm mentioning to you that's just one of several things. Like if you want me to go through the whole list first, you'll
Let's go.
see
Yeah,
how it
let's
all
go.
comes together.
Yeah, let's go through
But
some more of the
no,
list because
I want to go through each individual thing one at a time.
I haven't noticed anyone excessively on the ice for an excessive amount of time at any
Chris,
one moment,
you're missing the point.
which would be the shift length.
It's not the length of the shift that it's the issue. What he's saying is the players are out of shape and unable to complete a full shift, which
Right.
leaves
So if
them
you're
tired, affects their compete level, and makes them make mistakes.
right, but you're saying the average length of a shift is what, 40? What did you say it was? 40 somewhat 40.
46.9 seconds.
All right, let's call it 47 seconds. All right. If they're not able to do a full 47-second shift, then the solution would be to shorten the shift. Correct? It would leave them with more time to recover. It would allow them to not be as tired towards the end of the shift. And it because what happens is the tiredness accumulates over the course of the game. That's why they
No,
suck so much in the third period.
that's not the solution. The solution is to get in shape.
Well, yes.
And
I'm talking about
it alludes way back to what I was saying in the preseason and what Cam Neely hinted to earlier in the week, that training camp was an issue.
well, their training camp was a completely different approach because they were trying to find the players who were going to make the roster. So as opposed to training them for the season. I do think that was a massive setback for the team overall because you're not skating these guys to get them into shape. You're skating them to see who matches with who, what combinations work together, what pairs are you going to want out there together to formulate the forward group.
Yeah.
So I do think the training camp was an issue in that regard.
Before preseason games, skating these players hard in practices and stuff was to figure out who's in shape and who's not. And they lacked that. I said way back when all these players were in Europe at weddings and stuff, that they lacked a full summer preparation like they normally would, and they were out of shape, and they still are out of shape.
But again, as we said, there's more to the list. I'm interested. Okay, so being out of shape, problem number one. Let's go on to the next thing.
One thing you hear me talk a lot about prospects is compete level, but going to combine compete level with work ethic. And this coach just, and he's followed the Bruins for a few years. He says this team does not work like the Boston Bruins are known to work. The work ethic just isn't there. The compete level just isn't there. I agree with it. Like, I don't know how you can deny that is not an issue.
I can't say I would disagree with that by any stretch. I think there are competitive players on the roster. A guy like Brad Marchand, Charlie McAvoy, like they're competitive guys. But I do feel like some of the other guys who have come in, not necessarily just this year. I'm not trying to single out Lindholm and Zadorov and those guys, but they're more of the um, I'm going to come in, do my job, compete for the time, and then move on. They don't have as much of that drive of, I need to skate extra to get back in shape, that type of thing. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. And now I'm going to skip way down. We'll go back to some of the other ones. Because this is a hot topic these days. So I flat out asked him, do you think they have tuned out the coach? And his simple response was, I don't know. I'm not there in the room to see what is being said. And that's all he had to offer on that. But I think it's a discussion worth having, Chris.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know. Do you think they've tuned out Montgomery?
I think some of them have. I think there's a split room there. I wouldn't be surprised. I know you shot it down. I think the split room goes higher than just the locker room. I think there's a divide in the room between players, coaching staff, front office, and ownership. And I'm including Cam Neely in ownership in that, just because he is at that president level. I think there's disconnect at all four levels, and we are not used to seeing that. We saw cracks in the armor over the summer, and now we're seeing it trickle down. So the players, the coach, the general manager are not all on the same page anymore. And
okay, so let's break it down. When Jim Montgomery was assistant coach of the St. Louis Blues, he was responsible for the power play and the penalty kill. Both, I think, finished top 10 in the league, and if I remember correctly, the power play was second best in the NHL. Where's that gone with the Bruins under Montgomery?
It's gone completely downhill.
Yeah, the defensive system. Montgomery gets a lot of the blame for that, but that is Joe Sacco's responsibility. It has been since the Claude Julien days. Montgomery has on a few occasions spoken about Sacco in that role, and that basically all they were going to do was tweak some of the defensive system, more so the breakouts that they use, which are almost non-existent right now with the team. I don't know. Is it Montgomery and Sacco, or is it Montgomery?
Well, that's what I mean by there's a disconnect across the board. Like there's everybody. We're so used to this organization rowing in the same direction across all parts of the ship. The players. We know that Andrew Peak is on the same page as Patrice Bergeron, was on the same page as Brad Marchand. You know what I mean? Like, everybody was on the same page with each other when it came to the players. They were all on the same page when it came to the head coach, what he wanted. The head coach was on the same page as everyone on his coaching staff and what they were trying to convey to the positional groups. From there, you had the head coach in line working lockstep with Don Sweeney in the front office. Which players should we go out and get? How are they going to fit in our system? And the whole team was rowing in the exact same direction, in sync, and it was one of the model organizations across the league. This year, something changed, and we're seeing the effects of it. Not all the players are on the same page with all the coaches. Not all the coaches are on the same page with each other. Not on the same page with the front office. Not on the same page as the president, as the ownership group. Like, yeah, everybody wants to win a championship, so they all have that in common. But the how are we going to do it part is where they're not in lockstep where they used to be so good at it, if that makes sense.
Then you could say there's a leadership issue.
Is it a leadership in the? I was gonna say, is it leadership in amongst the players? Because that's one of the groups that people have been bringing to light. And I'll use this as a microcosm of it. What would you say of the players groups has been the one area of the ice, while they have their concerns, the concerns that you come up with are not entirely on themselves all the time?
I can't because
best performing group of players. What would you say? The forward group, the defensive group, the goaltenders?
I don't understand your question.
Let me try and put it a different way. From last year we had, and the year before, we had Swayman and Ullmark completely on the same page, with all the goaltending coaches, between Bob Essenza and his entire team. Mike Dunham was on the same page with Bussy and DiPietro, so on down the line. And Montgomery completely stayed out of the goaltending conversation as much as he could. He let that ship row itself. This year, you're starting to see that come to fruition again. Because while Swayman has left something to be desired, I mean, if you look at his 5-on-5 numbers versus his penalty kill numbers, you take as many penalties as they've taken and have a crap penalty kill in front of them, his numbers are going to be skewed.
Okay, I understand all that. Get to your question.
So we're not seeing any issues in continuity in goaltending because Swayman knows his job, Korpisalo knows his job, Bob Essenza knows his job. They are all on the same page. Goaltending is not a problem for this team. Can you say that about the forward group? Can you say that about the defensive group? And right now, the answer is no.
I beg to differ. There is an issue in the goaltending.
What would you say the issue is?
Well, like you brought up Mike Dunham and Brandon Bussy. Brandon Bussy sucks.
Absolutely, that's in Providence, though. That's not.
It doesn't matter.
At the NHL level.
You brought him up. You brought up Mike Dunham, and you brought up Brandon Bussy. So do
you think they're not on the same page, or do you think Brandon Bussy is just playing like absolute garbage?
I think they're not on the same page because Michael DiPietro is playing outstanding.
Okay.
At the NHL level, I don't think Jeremy Swayman's been all that. Yesterday, halfway through the first period, I tweeted, it doesn't matter what happens the rest of the game. As far as I was concerned, Jonas Korpisalo earned the next start. And it's not because he was standing on his head. It's because this team needs wins. They're at an easy part of the schedule. And right now, and I'll get crapped on for saying this, Jonas Korpisalo gives them the best chance of winning. not Jeremy Swayman. Take it to the defense, the defenseman. Yeah, there's a disconnect between the coaching staff and the defense. You know, and I would say the same thing with the forwards. But if you break down this team, okay, Mark Kostelik, Jonas Korpisalo, Cole Koepke, to a lesser extent, Tyler Johnson. You know, you have to include Andrew Peeke in there as well. And what do these guys all have in common?
They're in regards to the fact that they're questionable roster guys.
Cole Koepke's a questionable roster guy.
In
Mark Kostelik's
in the sense that they had to come in and prove themselves.
From start to now, they've been their best players.
Right, and they're the ones that came into the season with the most to prove.
No, they're the ones that came into the season with no past experience with this coaching staff.
Fair.
That's the difference.
So you're narrowing it down to being a coaching problem. Across the board, it's the coaches. Now, Steve jumps in the comments and says, call Gerard Gallant. He's available.
No, I'm not calling Gerard Gallant. Gerard Gallant is a one-year coach who gets left off the bus and is a regular season coach. He's not my first choice.
I was going to say, I know who your choice is. Your first choice, you've said before, is Dale Hunter. Hopefully that's someone they can try and get on the phone and do something with. But who knows if he'd even want to do it. But that's beside the point.
Dale Hunter went into Washington in 2010, I believe it was, when they fired their coach. And the first thing he did was take all the star players and reduce their ice time. First thing he did. And he got him into the playoffs, and they actually won 2 rounds or a round. Here's a coach that isn't afraid to tell David Pastrnak or Elias Lindholm or Brad Marchand what he thinks.
Right. So here's another question, because we know, and I know I want to get through the rest of the list. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's go back to the list real quick. Steve jumps in and says 2012. Let's go back to the list. Let's get through the rest of the list. I want to put a pin in the coaching change conversation and come back to that, because there's some other follow-up questions that we can get to. I want to get through the list, though. So I'm making a note to come back to that one.
Okay. 2 items we can put together is lack of commitment and undisciplined. They're not committed to the system. Everybody's wondering, what is the system? Well, the system is there. The guys just aren't committed to it. Again, these aren't stupid players. They're NHL players who have experience with the Boston Bruins and have experience with Jim Montgomery. And again, the new guys like Cole Koepke, Mark Kostelik, they get it. They're doing it.
Yeah. I would also kind of put that in with work ethic and the compete level, because if you're trying to win a cup, and that's the number one goal, and you have the talent level that they have, you're going to work your ass off to try to compete in a way. Again, I made that analogy of rowing the boat. You would commit to playing the system so that hey, the system just doesn't work. But you can't say the system doesn't work if people aren't committed to playing it the right way.
Right. And finally, the biggest thing is it's a terrible power play, but an even worse penalty kill. And he stresses you can survive with a bad power play. You can win hockey games with a bad power play. You cannot, absolutely cannot win hockey games with a terrible penalty kill. And the Bruins, with the amount of penalties that they've taken, can't afford a bad penalty kill. How many points has the PK cost them?
So many. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone out there with a formula who can calculate it. I don't know what the formula would be, and quite frankly, it's too many. Too many is the answer.
Yeah. So again, to me, that's a coaching issue, but it's also a player issue, a lack of commitment, undisciplined, and lack of work ethic. Which goes back to my question to him was, has Jim Montgomery lost the room?
Did he ever have the room to start the season? I guess would be the better question.
I wonder, and I wonder out loud, would it be different if he had a contract extension in place?
I think that's the bigger question. Are they looking at him going, I don't know if you're going to be here next year. Why should I listen to you now? Essentially. No, I don't think they're actually going into it with that attitude, but subconsciously, is that kind of where they're? I mean, that's what it looks like they're playing like.
You have to wonder if it plays a role in it.
Which that would come down to, as you mentioned, a leadership amongst the player issues. Because the players are the ones that need to sit there and go, he's the coach right now. We need to listen to him now. Regardless of whether he has a contract for next season or not, doesn't matter. That's next year's problem. We're trying to win a cup now. And if that's not the focus of the leadership group, then that's a problem with the leadership group.
I agree 100%.
So, is there more to the list?
No, that pretty much covers it.
So we've narrowed it down to leadership problems, coaching problems.
Pretty much.
Now, when it comes to, and Steve is saying, Dom, you are 100% on everything. Sounds like a new coach is needed. So we'll pull the pin out of that conversation and talk about a potential option for coaching change. Now, are you just firing Jim Montgomery? Are you shaking up the entire coaching staff? What's the approach to firing the coaching staff or replacing the coaching staff? Do you try and just go get another voice and add to it and see if you can bring in someone to just bolster the staff?
They already did that with Jay Leach. Like, my opinion is that it's too late in the season, and we're only a quarter way through, 20 games in. It's too late to change the entire coaching staff. You're not going to get quality coaches 20 games into the season to come in and replace everybody. You're just not. It doesn't happen. So one voice has to go. You know where my thought process is on it. Should have happened 2 years ago. When you have the best team in the history of the NHL in the regular season, your GM goes out and makes the additions that he made to win a Stanley Cup 2 years ago, and your coach F's it up as bad as he did, you don't get a second chance, in my opinion. You just don't.
And I mean, we all saw from the outside that Linus Ullmark wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
We all saw that. And what the hell was he doing separating Bergeron and Marchand and Bergeron?
I don't know. There are lots of decisions. They're up 3-1, and Bergeron says he's good to play. You're up 3-1 in the series. He's a superstar. You don't need him in Game 5. Oh, Bergie, take an extra game. Hopefully, we close it out, and you get a break before the next series, and you get more time to recuperate. You could say the same thing about David Krejci.
Yep.
Uh, just so many mind-boggling decisions made in that series against Florida 2 years ago that, is it ownership that didn't want to pay a second coach and wouldn't allow the firing? I don't know. I don't have information on that. But to me, that was the time to make the change. Last year is a Moneyball team put together, but how much did Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark cover up for the flaws in the team last year? It wasn't coaching. It was the best goaltending duo in the NHL that saved their bacon.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way. I just pulled it up for last year. Swayman had 44 starts, 27 quality starts, and Linus Ullmark had 39 starts, and 26 of them were quality starts. Between them, 53 quality starts over an 82-game season. That's 65%. The goaltending gave you the best chance to win in 65% of the games without anything the forward group or defensive groups did for you.
Yeah, people act as if it was brilliant coaching of a Moneyball roster, and it wasn't. It was the goaltending that saved their bacon.
I mean, it just becomes the question of, and this is why I've been saying I don't think Montgomery survives this whole ordeal, because I don't know what other options there are. I mean, you can't trade away the entire roster. Yes, you can look at the core of this team and say, we're willing to make phone calls and actively shop, try to make a deal with anybody on the roster except for, who are the guys that you're not trading away? You're not trading away Pastrnak. You're not trading away Marchand. At least I don't think you're going to trade away your captain.
No, you know me, Chris. In the right deal, I would trade anybody. There's no such thing as an untouchable to me.
I agree with that. I'm just saying, given the landscape of where you're at right now and where you're trying to just shake things up, if you were tearing the roster down and going into the full rebuild that everyone's been complaining about, everybody's been, or not everybody, but a lot of people are asking for: rebuild, start from scratch, trade away this player. You're trading away Pastrnak, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo.
You're trading everybody.
Trading everybody.
That's what a
not the route
rebuild
they're
is.
going to do. Yeah, they're not going to do that. So if you're just looking to shake things up, Pastrnak doesn't meet that. That's a total rebuild trade. Now,
not necessarily. It depends on the return. And if somebody calls about David Pastrnak, you have to listen. If somebody calls about Charlie McAvoy, you have to listen. If it makes the team better for the present and the future, you make the trade.
I listen 100%. I'm not calling another team saying, "Are you willing to trade me for player X?" In the sense of, I'm not shopping David Pastrnak.
Right.
If someone calls me, or if I call them, if I call St. Louis and I go, "Hey, I'm interested in Robert Thomas," and they go, "Great, we're interested in David Pastrnak. Let's have a conversation." Okay, there's a conversation to start. Do we land on a deal? I don't know, but there's a conversation 100%. But I'm not calling going, "Hey, we're looking to trade David Pastrnak. What will you give us for him?" That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree. To me, everybody's tradable. If you take that that St. Louis talk. Okay, yeah, you give us Robert Thomas and throw in Pareko, and yeah, where do we go from there? If you listen to the offers, you listen to what GMs are saying, and if it makes the team better now and in the future, you make the deal.
Now,
Absolutely.
I agree with that. I agree with it, and I'm not saying nobody's off the table. All I'm saying is I prefer to keep those guys. Is Don Sweeney the guy to make that trade?
No.
So you would fire the coach and the GM?
No, I didn't say that. I just don't think Sweeney is the guy to pull off at this time a major trade for a guy like David Pastrnak or Charlie McAvoy. Look, he was part of the management team that traded away Tyler Seguin.
Yeah. He also traded away Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah. So, like, he does okay bringing guys in, but
If I recall the story correctly, go ahead. You go first.
The track record for trading away star players when Sweeney has been part of this membership or management group has not been good.
Well, he hasn't traded away many star players. Was he the one? He didn't pull off the Tyler Seguin deal. That was a Chiarelli deal.
No, but he was assistant GM. Are you saying he was not part of the group?
No, but how much did he have say versus Chiarelli? It was Chiarelli's trade.
He was part of the management team, Chris. Do you think it was left in the cold? Honestly, do you think he was left out in the cold?
Completely no. Do I think there was an overstep by somebody else? Do I think Peter Chiarelli came down and said, this is the deal we're going to do, this is the final decision, and maybe something Don Sweeney said got left on the table? Yeah, probably.
It doesn't work that way, Chris. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. If you get multiple offers, you present it to your team and say, this is the offers that we're getting. Which one makes the most sense? It's like if Don Sweeney was kept cold, then do you think he'd involve his assistant general managers right now?
I think Don Sweeney and Peter Chiarelli have a little bit of a different approach.
No, Peter Chiarelli trained Don Sweeney.
That doesn't mean they do everything exactly the same.
Oh, come on, Chris.
Come on, Dom.
No, come on, Chris.
Look, given the trades that Don Sweeney has been responsible for, because we always talk about where's the responsibility lie. Well, the responsibility for the Tyler Seguin trade ultimately lays with Peter Chiarelli. At the end of the day, he was the general manager who pulled the trigger on the deal. Was Sweeney part of the conversation? Sure. He wasn't the decision maker.
No, but he was part of the decision making, Chris. Come on.
Right.
It wasn't even Chiarelli's decision to trade Seguin. It came from up above.
Right. Yep. So basically, you're proving by that statement, you're proving what I said before, in that someone from ownership has stepped over the line. And I'm not saying they're doing it in a, illogical way. I do think they're trying to do what they think is best for the organization, but ultimately they stepped over the line into the general manager's office and said, you need to do this. You need to trade this player. And in this case,
Right, Chris, right. And they take offers, and Peter Chiarelli did not make the decision on his own. He sat down with his team, which included Don Sweeney and Scott Bradley and everybody else in management, said, these are the offers we got. Which one do we take?
do we know which direction Don Sweeney leaned in that conversation? What if he wanted a different deal because he liked different players and a different offer?
It's not public knowledge.
Exactly. I'm not going to pretend that I know how that conversation went. Was he part of the conversation? Yes, he was.
And he was part of the decision making.
He was. I'm not saying he wasn't.
No, but earlier you said he wasn't.
No, what I'm saying is the responsibility of the deal falls on the general manager. That's why they have the title.
It always falls on the general manager, even though it wasn't Chiarelli's decision to trade on him. It always falls on the general manager. Always. Always has and always will.
I think we're agreeing a little more than we think. Because I agree with you on that.
Okay, so no, you disagree, because I'm telling you right here and right now, Don Sweeney was part of the management team when they traded Tyler Seguin. Therefore, part of the responsibility on that trade falls on him.
Yes, but let's look at the rest of his track record for the ones that have been his responsibility in his tenure in his current role.
So you think the Dougie Hamilton one was good?
They acquired 2 second-round picks and a first-round pick. All right.
They never offered him. He never offered him to anybody else. There were GMs on the draft floor saying, we didn't know he was available.
Do I think he has been flawless? No. I never said he's been flawless. Do I think he got a good return for that player? Yes. You got 2 picks in the second round and a first-round pick. Should he have made more calls? Yeah. You think he would be making more calls today than he did back in 2015?
He would have got better offers. He was this close to trading Tuukka Rask at that same draft. This close.
I know. You've told me that before. Here's my question. Okay. We're 10 years removed from that draft. Or almost. Do you think Don Sweeney now would trade Dougie Hamilton the same way he did 10 years ago?
I don't know. Probably.
You don't think he's learned anything about being a better general manager over 10 years?
I'm not saying he hasn't learned anything, but he probably would make the same trade again. The same way.
Don Sweeney was, he might have been in the front office during the Phil Kessel trade. I don't remember that far back, but
he was in player development at the time, I believe.
I was going to say, that was still another Chiarelli deal, right?
No.
Who was before him?
Or Kessel, yeah. That was Chiarelli.
Okay. I feel like when Sweeney has made his trades, and he's made a lot of low-level trades. Like, his biggest trades have been the Korpisalo trade, the Taylor Hall trade in both directions, the Hathaway-Orlov trade that netted both of them. I mean, Zaka for Holla, I would consider that a bigger trade of his. The Lindholm trade. Let's see. He was able to trade away the Backus contract, bringing in Charlie Coyle, bringing in Rick Nash. Those would be the ones. Oh, and then we were talking about the Dougie Hamilton trade. Has every trade worked out? No. I'm sure if you gave him some truth serum, he would rather have kept Riley Smith and Savard versus Jimmy Hayes. That didn't work out.
No, but you're not seriously giving him credit for acquiring Taylor Hall, are you?
I mean,
seriously?
I'm talking more or less the trade away, the way he was able to free up cap space in that move. One move freed up the cap space that they were able to put together the rest of their roster last year with. I mean,
Still
it was better
than. I still think he could have done better.
Maybe.
Look, I'm not saying Don Sweeney is a bad GM, because I don't think he is. He's consistently one of the better GMs in the NHL. But there have been mistakes. The people that defend him think he does not make mistakes, but he's made several.
I never once said he didn't make a mistake. You know that. I will criticize him as much as I praise him.
Chris, I did not just accuse you of saying that he did.
I know. I'm just saying, I will criticize him as much as I praise him.
So now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry about that.
Oh, well, move on.
He's constantly one of the best general managers in the league, as you mentioned. 31 other teams would be lining up out the door to bring him in if he got fired.
I don't think 31 would. No, we don't. No. He's not the best GM.
Okay. 29
do you think Tampa Bay or Florida or Detroit? Yeah, because I think Yzerman is that good of a GM. I could name a few more. Do you think that they would fire their GM to bring in Don Sweeney, or would promote their GM to president of hockey operations to bring Don Sweeney in? I don't think so.
Maybe not in that way. They might be rushing to be like, hey, come join our staff in this other capacity. Be an assistant GM type role or a consulting to the GM type of role. Because Don Sweeney is the type of guy who could jump on any front office staff and have a lot to contribute, whether it's as a general manager, in whatever. So
not denying that.
That's what I'm referring to.
Why would he do that when a team will offer him a GM position? Why would he do that?
Better chance to go win a ring. But yeah, I agree. He'd go run another team.
There isn't 29 other teams that would jump at the opportunity to hire him.
So, we'll circle back because holy crap, it's already, what time are we at here? 7:20. With the Boston Bruins, it's too late, you said, to hire a whole new coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's too late to bring in a new general manager for the year?
No.
Okay.
I think they have one in the making right there.
In Evan Gold.
Yep.
So, what is your proposed solution for this whole situation? It can be multi-part or just a single bullet in the gun. Which one? What would your solution be to try to resolve this?
Several steps. right now, right now, I would give Jonas Corposalo the start tomorrow night. He gives them the best chance to win. I would actually give him a couple of games and have Swayman work really, really hard with Bob Basenza over the next few days to get his game back where it should be. That's number one. Number two, the whole talk on in the whole preseason was we needed a second line right wing. I tended to agree with that. Right now, I think the biggest need is a left wing.
Yes.
I think Brazeau has done well enough to hold the fort for now, but you need a left wing to play with Zacha and Pasternak. If you move Marchand up there, then you need one to play with Lindholm and Brazeau.
Yeah.
I kind of like that Marchand, Lindholm, Brazeau line as it is. So it's moved from a 2 right wing to a 1 or 2 left wing, depending on how you want to call it. They need to fix that. Number 3, I would revert back to last year's system and the breakout from their own zone. This is putting too much on the defensemen. The forwards aren't helping enough, and it's not working for the Bruins. So change that. Then the PK. Whatever needs to happen on the penalty kill needs to happen and needs to happen right away. The power play I'm not as concerned about. Like this coach said to me, you can win with a bad power play, but you can't win with a bad PK. They need to fix that. How? I don't know. I'm not a penalty killing coach. Part of that falls on goaltending, obviously. And the big one is I would drop the hammer and make the coaching change right now. This team to me, and remember, I said October was not going to be a very good month for a lot of reasons. And it wasn't.
I remember.
It was not. But this team, on paper, as constructed, should be better than what they're showing right now. What are they? 5-2-2 in November?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So, something like that. It's better, but this team is not where they should be. They're not playing to their capabilities. And, you know, the hammer has to fall somewhere, and it's on the coaching staff.
Yeah. I really can't say I disagree with a lot of what you said. If you fire Monty, are you just going and elevating Jay Leach as interim head coach for the rest of the season?
No, it's Sacco's associate coach. It's his job
Or
for the
Sacco,
rest
rather.
of the season.
Sacco, rather.
Yeah.
I just...
Do I like the idea?
Sacco...
No. But it has to happen as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, at this point, listen, you know me, I was saying for the last couple weeks, I don't know how much firing Jim Montgomery changes things. And I still don't. But to your point, is it something that we're getting closer and closer to an inevitability that, like you said, has to happen? Because there are only so many bullets in the gun and so many things that you can try to shake this up. And I agree with you. They need to go and make a move for. I agree that it's a left wing. real quick, side conversation. What did you think of the Merkulov, Coyle, Frederick line from the other night?
I liked it. I think Merkulov has earned another opportunity, but we know Tyler Johnson is back in tomorrow. Kostelic is day to day, so um, what happens to the lines at that point? Like Tyler Johnson's not a fourth liner, neither is Merkulov. So what do you do?
Didn't they
Do you
have
put
who was left wing on the first line with Zaka and Pasternak?
Johnson?
Was it no. And the other day when that was
Geeky.
Geeky, right? So could although Geeky on that left has worked question mark since he's been back in the lineup, but I like Johnson up there better. I really do. Johnson, Zaka, Pasta, Marchand, Lindholm, Brazeau. I'd go back to Merkulov, Coyle, Frederick. Frederick looks so much better on the right. I don't know why. He just seems to fit better over there.
I don't know. He's done it before. I'm not gonna base anything on one game against St. Louis's hometown team and adrenaline. I need to see it for more than one game.
I was just say earlier this year they made the move to put him to Coyle's right, and that was when he looked his best. He didn't ultimately get points, but that's when he looked the most comfortable. Last year, he looked comfortable on Coyle's right side. Otherwise, I think you're looking.
He also looked comfortable on the left. It's just too small a sample size this year. I'm not basing anything to do with St. Louis when it comes to Trent Frederick. Same way as I am not basing anything that Connor McDavid does against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Anyway, so to finish that out, I would have a fourth line. I would keep that third line together. I think they've earned at least another look. Merkulov, Coyle, Frederick. So at that point, I would look to see. It would have to be if Kostelic can't go, Geeky, Beecher, and Kepke.
We'll see. We'll know in 24 hours.
So that's where I would look. I would like to see them look to go back to at least. I agree with you. I think they have a bigger need on the left side because clearly it looks like Zaka Pasternak looks much better with Zaka down the middle than with him on the left side. I don't get it. I feel like that shouldn't matter that much given the chemistry they have, but it just I don't know. What do you think? It looks to me like it works better with Zaka and Pasternak with Zaka down the middle.
I don't know. I'm just not breaking up the pair.
Because you either need a center to put between them, which we know isn't Elias Lindholm right now. And I know a lot of people are going to scream and pound their fists and scream Matthew Poitras's name. I feel like that's a line that you can't put out against certain other top lines because they just don't have the physicality. Zaka, Poitras, Pasternak.
Yeah, it is what it is right now. Poitras's not even on the team, so
I know. I'm bringing it up because that's the gut reaction that a lot of fans are going to want to have, because a lot of people think sending him down to Providence was a massive mistake and an error, and Don Sweeney should be fired just because he put Matthew Poitras down in Providence. So that's why I'm mentioning Matthew Poitras. I know he's not with this organization right now. He's down there. I don't hate that for him. I like that for his development. He can keep him down the line in the middle, and he can get 18, 20 minutes a night in all situations.
Yeah, it is what it is. Well, like I said, we'll know in 24 hours what the lineup's going to be. But it
And
doesn't
Steve
sound like Kostelic is going to be going.
and Steve says it doesn't matter anyway. Monty changes the lines way too much during the game. Maybe that's part of the problem.
But he didn't. He didn't yesterday. Other than the fact when he was forced to with Kostelic being out.
Yeah, I thought for the most part he kept the lines together.
Yeah.
And they looked pretty good overall. Again, relative to other games and other situations. And yes, I agree. If I'm Don Sweeney, I start making phone calls, seeing who's available, seeing what prices are, um, and try to make a deal to bring in a winger who can play that left side on the top line. I mean, there's going
It's
to be
it's hard to make a deal right now. It's hard.
oh, absolutely. But I think there's going to be some options out there that I can't say every fan of the Boston Bruins is going to fall in love with the option, but they might be able to help make the team a little bit better. The question is what's it going to look like with what you send the other direction? That's going to be the big issue. You want to pull off a big earth shattering, shake up the locker room kind of move. Well, you're sending multiple pieces out the door. You're sending a guy like Matthew Poitras out the door. Like that's how you're going to get an elite top 3 winger. That's what you have to give up. I mean,
Yeah, there's no trade happening in November.
it
I
was a top.
I, I just cannot see it happening for many reasons. Teams aren't going to start selling this early, and the cap.
I agree with you, 100%. I just want to set that expectation for if and when a move does come down. For Matthew Tkachuk, it was a top pairing defenseman in Uyghur, and it was 100-point winger in Jonathan Huberdeau that went the other direction. Like, has the deal worked out for Florida? I'd say it has. But those are 2 tough pieces. What's the equivalent of that in Boston? You're talking a Pastrnak and a Carter.
No. I'm not grouping Jonathan Huberdeau with David Pastrnak. No way.
Pasternak's a much better goal scorer, but I'm talking about point production.
No, I'm not grouping them together. I'm not.
What would you equivalent then to that deal?
The Bruins don't have an equivalent to Huberdeau. Number one, David Pastrnak is much better, and number two,
He's a goal scorer.
they don't have anybody on the roster that was the equivalent of Jonathan Huberdeau at the time of the trade.
Well, yeah, I mean, Huberdeau was an assist king, and Pasternak's a goal scorer, and they are very different in the way they play. I was just referring to them in the sense of overall point production, but yeah, Pastrnak I would put way higher on the list than Huberdeau. They don't have any equivalent, but
No, that's what I just said. There is no equivalent.
and with that being the case, you're now including a prospect like a Matthew Poitras to try to help increase the package. This is to get that kind of player. So
yeah, but you know what, Chris? We're not getting a Matthew Tkachuk type player, so there's no point in even discussing it. It's not going to happen.
The one guy I like is Oliver Bjorkstrand. That said, I just don't see where Boston has anything of value, where they're going to net any talent of significance. So fans better get ready for a Vetrano level acquisition. You say Vetrano like he didn't put up a bunch of goals last year. I
30,
just don't think
I
Boston. Do you see Boston going after Vetrano because they're familiar with him?
Yeah, because that's the only type of player they can go after. They can't go after a first line winger. They don't have the assets and they don't have the cap space.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting move to see what they end up doing.
They may not do anything. They might look at it and say, you know what? Next year we might have an extra $9 million. Let's just ride the season out and wait.
and that's $9 million before a cap increase, right?
No, the cap increase is expected to be around $4.5 million, but Elliot Friedman said on Saturday that the NHL and NHLPA would going to be in discussions to increase it $7 to $9 million.
No, what I'm saying is that is before you incorporate cap increases to what the Bruins will have available. I'm looking at Puckpedia right now, and next year
That's
they're
what I
projected
just said,
to have
Chris.
19.
Chris, that's what I just said. The cap is projected to go up 4.5 million, but as Elliot Friedman reported, the NHL and the NHLPA are going to be in discussions to increase the cap $7 to $9 million.
Right, so the 19 could jump up even more by another
19,
almost 7.
right.
So it's just a matter of figuring out who they want to have remain on the team for next year, who they want to re-sign.
I would not be surprised if it's the status quo for this season. I would not.
That would certainly make our show boring.
Not really. There's always things to talk about. Like
always things to talk about, but I mean, we'll be sitting here on the edge of our seats waiting for another topic other than how bad the team's playing. On the plus side, though, you got plenty of roster moves to worry about. Wotherspoon's at UFA. You got Lori needing a new contract. Kepke, Brazeau, Johnson, Frederick, and Marchand, all UFAs. So Beecher, RFA, Kostelik, RFA. You might have a tradable asset in Jonas Korpisalo if he keeps going the way he's going. Again, depending on how teams are looking at him.
yeah, but then you're spending to bring in a backup.
I'm just saying he's a tradable asset. I'm not saying I would move him. Would you classify the Zadorov contract as a mistake at this point, given how he has been so heavily penalized?
No, it's 20 games into a new contract. I'm going to give it more than 20 games.
Fair, totally fair.
I know most people don't because they want to see results right away, but it just doesn't happen that way.
Right? Yeah, you don't win the cup in the first 20 games of the year. So, I mean, let's see what I want to see what he can do in the playoffs because he definitely is bringing a playoff style. I want him to get his head out of his ass at times. I'm sure that's driven you crazy.
But I'm used to it from Zadorov all the way back to his London night days. So
that's true. I know you're used to it. What have you thought of Jordan Osterley since he's been called up?
I thought he's been fine. You know,
we saw him get moved up to play with McAvoy the other night.
Yeah.
How did you think that pairing looked? I didn't mean to cut you off. It sounded like you also
I
had a
thought
question.
I thought he was okay. He's not an 82 game roster player. He's not. Simple as that. I think Mason Lohrei can learn some stuff from him. And I know people are going to say, you know, career AHLer. Well, he's got over 300 games of NHL experience. And it's exactly the reason why the Bruins brought him in to work with the kids like Jackson Edward and Ryan Mast and Frederick Brunet. Mason Lohrei can be part of that group. Lohrei could learn a thing or two from Osterley, and I hope he's paying attention to him.
Yeah, I agree. He's not an 82 game a year guy, and the good news is we're not relying on him to do that. I haven't heard an update as to the time frame of Lindholm's return on the back end. Have you heard anything that would determine how long he might be out for?
No. What did Montgomery say? Week to week?
He said multiple weeks.
When the Bruins made the roster moves Saturday that they were going to LTIR because they were within $18,000 of the cap, and that would have been the time. Because you want to be as close to the cap max as possible to do it, but obviously they found another way. So,
well,
you know, I'm sure once peak is good to go, that they're going to go back to 6 defensemen and send Osterley back down.
Here, do you think that the fact they did not put Hampus Lindholm on LTIR bodes well for it being more of a shorter term injury, like a 3
No,
week?
it's got nothing to do with that. It always comes down to managing the cap when you put a player on LTIR. He doesn't have to go on today. He could go on in 3 weeks from now. LTIR is always retroactive.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The fact that it's retroactive also helps because they can do it in 2 weeks if they really wanted to and felt they were in a better position.
The cap is what determines when you put a player on LTIR. Like I said, you want to be as close to the cap as possible to maximize the dollars. And right now there's 632,000 under. So you're not putting Hampus Lindholm on LTIR at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I thought that it was going to come down. He was on LTIR when they made those other moves, but we'll see if that ends up changing. And then it sounds like peak isn't an option for tomorrow's game, but maybe by the end of the week we might see him again. So, we could have.
I think it was Ty Anderson that talked to him. He wants to play tomorrow.
Yeah, I heard he wants to play, but Montgomery, I think, had a quote saying something along the lines of him possibly, most likely being doubtful.
He said they'll see how he reacts tomorrow morning to the contact he took today.
Yeah, which hopefully he can jump in the lineup. I'd love to see how he does against his old team, and if he's aching to get back in the lineup, I love to see that. And then you could go back to seeing Wotherspoon Peak, Lohrei, Carlo, Zadorov, McAvoy.
That's how I would do it, but I'm not an NHL coach.
No, but you're the closest thing we got to one here. So
no.
I'm looking forward to see if we can get another good performance. Ideally, get another good performance out of Georgi Merkulov. I think it would show significant growth in not just the player, but I also think, and maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic than others, but if Georgi Merkulov can take this opportunity, and now is the time where he solidifies himself on a line with Coyle and Frederick, and they keep playing well, do you think for any moment a a larger portion, and it could be a small portion of the Bruins fan base, might gain a little bit more trust in them sending players back to Providence?
No. It'll never happen. Never happen.
If it can get one person, I win. They won't admit it though. But
No, they won't.
There are just so many questions, and it sucks because we need to see them answer. Like when they won in the comeback fashion that they did the first game against St. Louis, I sent it out on Twitter where I said it can be a turning moment of the season for the team. It can be. Exactly. The question was, how do they come out in their next game, and do they follow it up with, even if it was a loss against Dallas, but let's say they lost it in overtime 3-2 and they played their asses off. They didn't have to win that game. They had to play well, and they got their asses handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly that was not a turning point in the game or in the season. I was hoping also that the game-winning goal off the stick of Pastrnak, that the assist that he had earlier in the game, those were going to be things to spark him and see David Pastrnak that we're used to. But that didn't happen either.
Like I said, there's a lot wrong with this team. A lot. How do you fix it? I'll tell you, they need their good luck charm back. They need Sofia Jurkovic back on Nesson. She's their good luck charm.
Hopefully everything is okay for her, and obviously, like everybody, we're wishing her the best, and hopefully she comes back sooner rather than later. And man, if they start winning the second she comes back, she's never allowed to leave again.
Yeah, it's like obviously I was joking. There's just so much. It isn't just one thing. There's many things that need to be fixed with this team. Is it possible? Yeah, I think it's possible. I've been around long enough to know that it's possible. I mean, I've been watching hockey since before most people watching or listening were born. So I've seen it all. Is it probable? I don't know.
It depends on when they get their collective heads out of their collective asses. Because if they take this week, Columbus, and I don't even remember who else they have coming up after that, Columbus, Utah, and Detroit. If they can start to rotate the ship now, they don't fully hit the iceberg, okay, it's a lot more probable than if they wait 6 more weeks.
Look, remember what I said last week? Part of the issue is there are times when Don Sweeney isn't even with the team on the road because he's too busy scouting for Team Canada to get that roster put together. That's to me that's part of the issue right there. He should have had he should have been down in the dressing room at one point through this struggle addressing the team. We know Cam Neely was down there. We saw it on Behind the B. Whether he addressed the team or not, they didn't show that.
But I feel like he's not going down there to not address them.
You don't know, Chris. Nobody has told you whether he has or hasn't. Nobody's been on behind the B to show whether he has or hasn't. It's just speculation, and we don't do that here. Sweeney, again, I lost my train of thought.
Is focusing on Team Canada.
Sweeney needs to go down there and address the players. He needs to either make a move with Jim Montgomery or give him a show of confidence and tell the players he's here no matter what. And he will finish the season. And based on how we finish the season, will determine who is getting contract extensions at the end of the year and who's not. He has to be firm.
Yeah. Yeah. When's the deadline for the Four Nations roster again? Isn't it December 4th?
I believe it's December 4th, I believe it is.
So, yeah, maybe this just keeps going on until that roster's submitted, and that's when he kind of looks at it and says, all right, let's do something about it now. But by then it might be too late. That's the big question.
Yep.
So, I mean, so much more, but we could speculate and stuff like that. Checking to see if I missed any comments. I've had that scroll bar stop on me before. Would love to get any questions in the comment section. Dom, any topics that you wanted to cover that we haven't gotten to yet?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I want to address. First of all, and I'm not knocking Georgi Merkulov here, but I've seen in a lot of social media what a beautiful tip pass he made to Trent Frederick
for that tip in goal.
Absolute beauty. Well, if you watch the highlights long enough, you will see he wasn't trying to tip it to Frederick. He tipped it on goal, was trying to go 5-hole, and Binnington got it with his stick and pushed the rebound right out to Trent Frederick. If that was Jeremy Swayman or Jonas Corposalo doing that, we'd be all over them. Credit to Merkulov for putting himself in that situation and getting that tip right on goal, but it was not the beauty pass that some are making it out to be. I want to go back to the Brandon Carlo hit in the Dallas game.
That's a good one. I almost forgot to talk about that.
People, again, on social media, were saying that Ben deserves a suspension. You can't hit a player 3 feet from the boards like that. Those types of hits have to get out of the game. Okay, I will say this first of all. From the end boards to the goal line is 11 feet. Okay. Brandon Carlo was less than a stride past the goal line. So at most, or the closest he actually was to the boards, was not 3 feet. At best, he was 10 feet from the boards. Okay. If that was open ice, it was a clean hit. But he wasn't 3 feet from the boards. And even Brandon Carlo today, if you saw him talk about it, was okay with the hit. Okay. He just had the wind knocked out of him. He said he knew it wasn't head related. And that was it. He was fine with it, and he's moving on. He basically called it a hockey hit. Now, the Ryan Reeves one from last night, yeah, that's a dirty hit. That's the one we have to get out of the game. That he got 5 games for that is a joke to me. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
My initial reaction to the hit and the replay was along the same lines that there should be some sort of first of all, I do think it was a 5-minute major for Jamie Benn. If it was an open ice, yeah, the board isn't there, but the board is there. And by definition of the ruling for boarding, that was a boarding hit. Now, I also have seen Ben take runs like that at other players intentionally. And so I feel like there was some intent for more than just, I'm going to hit him to knock him off the puck, because he did have an ability to adjust. He didn't have to hit him in that fashion. And the rules are very clear that the onus is on the hitter to make sure that they do not hit a vulnerable, defenseless player in such a manner. Now, given the new context of how Carlo felt about it, the end result, obviously Carlo coming back, that type of thing, I'm okay that there was no suspension for it. I do think they got the call right the first time, but
I disagree. I don't think it was major. How far away from the boards does a player have to be for it not to be boarded?
Far enough that they don't hit the boards.
He's
that's
10
in the
feet.
rule.
He's 10 feet from the boards. He didn't hit him into the boards. He hit him, and Carlo went into the boards. Watch the highlight. He's 10 feet from the boards. 9 max. Boarding is if you hit the player into the boards. So you're making contact with the player into the boards. Ben hit him out here. You're not even watching.
I'm listening.
This
I'm
is
watching.
boarding. Bang. Into the boards. He hit Carlo out here. Carlo went into the boards. That's not boarding.
I'm trying to pull up the clip. Again, initial reaction was one thing. I'm going to try and look at it from a different perspective based off of your information here. But I also pulled it up that, let's see, a minor penalty will be assessed to any player who checks or pushes a defenseless opponent in such a manner that causes the opponent to hit or impact the boards violently or dangerously. This is Rule 7.2 for boarding. So by that definition, it's at least a minor penalty. At least.
Right.
At the discretion of the referee, based on the violence of the impact, the referee may assess a major penalty and game misconduct for boarding.
Which is what they did originally. Then they reviewed it and decided it was not as violent as they thought it was because of the distance from the boards.
I'm watching it again right now. Or trying to anyway. Because the next part of the rule is a match penalty, if a player is injured as a result of the boarding infraction that would otherwise call for a major penalty and game misconduct must be assessed. A match penalty will be assessed to any player who deliberately attempts to or deliberately injures an opponent by boarding. I found the clip.
It took you long enough.
The part for me that I'm looking at for the intent is, first off, the upchuck of the elbow from Ben, and I would add, I think initial contact was made next to the goal, but the actual impact of the hit, because he had the ability to not. Yeah, let's see. That's such a bad angle. I will say, I did like Zadorov jumping right into the mix and just getting at it with him right away. You got to love to see that, especially from a new guy like Zadorov. All right. The crux of the hit was, I would say, maybe 5 feet from the boards, based on the replay that I just found.
Contact was made 10 feet from the boards. It's 11 feet to the goal line, Chris.
Yeah. And they made contact behind the net.
Okay, I don't know what you're watching. Right here, he's less than a foot over the goal line when they made contact.
Okay. I'm willing to change. I'll keep looking at it.
There's a view from the corner camera that catches it perfectly.
Can you send me the link for the video that you have?
Not while we're on the show, no.
Oh, okay. Send it to me after. I'll take an extra look at it after. From what I'm seeing on the clip I found on YouTube, which may definitely not be the best angle, admittedly, it looks like contact was behind the net, the base of the net, and between 4 to 7 feet away from the boards. From here. If you have a better angle, I'm all ears and eyes. I will look at it.
Anyway, I look at it like this. You take 1 million Bruins fans, 1 million, and ask them, if that was Justin Brazeau doing it to Morgan Riley, is it a penalty? And 999,999 would say no.
Well, that's because it's happening from their guy. Let's be real.
Right. Right.
And they're also going to respond with they're also going to respond with Poitras shouldn't be down in the minors.
You and I, we always disagree on these penalties. Always. Because I don't look at it as a Bruins fan.
I'm not trying to look at this one as a fan. From the angle that I have, they look closer to the boards than you're telling me. I will look at your angle, and I'm open to the idea of.
You know what? They showed it. They showed it during the game. Why do you need a replay of it?
Because I don't have it in front of me to judge it. I'm not trying to get the judgment wrong.
You need to make this decision when you see it, not 3 days later.
I know, and I'm telling you what I saw when I saw it during the game.
During the game, Nesson, did you watch on Nesson?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so did I. Nesson showed the exact same replay I'm talking to you about from the corner where you see contact made 1 foot over the goal line, not behind the net. That's when I made my decision at that time. I'm not making it 3 days later.
I've also had an entire day since then where my brain doesn't remember the exact spot on the ice where that replay was. And I only saw the play happen in real time. I did not see that replay that you're referring to because I was working on other things at the same time. So I did not see the beginning part of the replay that you're referring to. So I'm telling you straight up, I don't know where contact was made. Based on the replay I have found, this is what it looks like. I will see another replay and give you my full opinion.
I want your opinion now. I don't want it tomorrow. But anyway, enough about that. You think it was a penalty? I don't.
I mean, they at least got the minor part correct.
Right. That's it.
We're there on that. In the moment, I thought a major would have been more appropriate. They did the review. Clearly, they found something else. What did you think of the goal in the goal? I'm trying to remember exactly how it played out. There was one too that could have been challenged for goaltender interference, but St. Louis opted not to.
I think they made the right call.
Because I remember I sent out something out because the precedent for the season has been going into the crease on your own, and I think that's where they made the judgment call.
Yeah, and I think Bannister looked at it and said, "Yeah, no, I'm not challenging that."
I thought they got that one right too, not just because it was a Bruins goal.
No, I think Drew Bannister is not a stupid hockey person. He's
No, not
actually
at
a
all.
very good coach. I think he looked at it. I think his video people wanted to challenge it, and he looked at it and says, "No, I'm not challenging that."
No, because he knows what the precedent has been set for this year.
Yeah.
So, anyways, got a little off tangent, but we do that sometimes.
That's okay.
I just realized
I like that.
I always got Kevin coming to your defense, at least. So,
Kevin used to love me.
He loves burritos.
He doesn't send me cookies anymore, so
he never told me that was my job, by the way. That's why I just recently found that one out. So you know, we're gonna blame Kevin on that one. But I did just notice the time here. It is getting a little bit late. Let's see. What do you mean used to? Kevin, you've got to come on the show.
Yes, Kevin.
That's why it's used to. You've got to come on the show.
I'll even let you eat a burrito.
Oh wow, you're really raising the stakes, especially if it's a steak burrito.
We should also tell everybody that because of the Bruins game tomorrow, our prospect show will be Tuesday at 6:30.
Yes, Tuesday 6:30 for the Dom.Hockey pod. We will be reviewing the prospects, kind of where they're at. We didn't touch on them as much as we would have last episode. We had a wonderful guest, Dom. I want to thank you again for getting him on the show. It was a great interview. I'll let you kind of plug his work again.
Well, Craig Eagles. So we learned a little bit more about Loke Johansson. Craig, he's a teacher and a hockey person, so he's got a mind that thinks things through properly. He gave his opinion on Fabian Lysell, Matthew Poitras, some of the other youngsters. This guy knows his junior hockey, and he knows the NHL. So it was great to have him on. I think we're having him on again just after American Thanksgiving to talk about where the Bruins are. So it'll be a good show.
We've got even Kevin asking to have him back on. So yeah, we're gonna have him on shortly after Thanksgiving. I have a feeling based on some feedback we'll be reaching out to him a bit. Just because I mean his insight was awesome, and it was a pleasure to have him on, and he does great work. So I'm hoping we get him on a lot more. And Loke Johansson is a great prospect to keep an eye out for. Actually, I did have a question for you before we jump off, and this might be a little bit better for Tuesday, but I want to at least plant the seed in your mind now. Simply because we mentioned it with Craig the NCAA agreement with the CHL, how that's changing.
Yeah.
Now, in listening to a different show, I don't remember exactly which one, so forgive me for not remembering who it was, but the person was an NCAA hockey reporter, and they mentioned how it would also have an effect on players from Europe. And immediately my mind went to a player like Jonathan Mierenberg. Now, it may not affect him specifically because I think his contract runs out before it would work for him, because and this is why I wanted to pick your brain on it, because you know that IIHF transfer agreement a lot better than anybody I know. Mierenberg's under Bruins control until the age of 24, correct?
No. He's
No,
under
he
their
can't come
control.
over.
Yeah.
That's what it was, right?
Okay.
He can't come over
I
from.
I think what the person you listen to, what he's meaning by it is, if you look at Oscar Yelvik, had to serve a suspension in the NCAA because he actually played professional hockey in Sweden, although it was only 3 games, and his total ice time was maybe 5 minutes through those 3 games. He had to sit out a suspension for playing professional hockey in Europe before he could play in the NCAA. There are others, Europeans, that played a game or two in the SHL and have had to sit out a suspension in the NCAA. I think what this person is now meaning is they can play professional hockey in Europe, but still come over to play in the NCAA. So, for instance, Nuremberg's played a professional hockey in Sweden, but he could come over and play in the NCAA and not have to worry about serving a suspension.
Right. So my question is, so for a player like Mierenberg, right, because he can't just come over right now and play for the Boston Bruins.
Right.
Could he, in theory, come over? Now, obviously, his contract is a little bit shorter than what this timeline would allow for. So just if this had happened, if this agreement had gone into place when they first traded for him, is a slightly better version of this. Could he, in theory, with this new rule, come over to the States, commit to a team like BC, play for 1 year, and then sign his ELC and come out and play for the Boston Bruins as a skirt around that can't come over until he's 24 because he was after the second round or later draft pick? Like, would that skirt that rule?
No. I don't know. It's a good question, and one I'll have to really dive into it. But I don't think Mierenberg can, because he actually has a professional contract signed, which the NCAA does not allow.
Right. That's why I'm saying it's not exactly this.
In Yelvik's case, where I mentioned he was suspended, Yelvik never actually had a professional contract in Sweden, but he did play in professional games, albeit only 3 of them, so he had to serve a suspension.
Kevin wants to know, is Mierenberg like a Soderbergh situation? I don't remember all the details of Carl Soderbergh's situation.
Kevin, yes and no. I will tell you, when the Bruins acquired him, I don't want to use the words I was going to use. Apologies to any of the ladies out there that are listening or watching. When the Bruins acquired him, I got an immediate erection. That's simple. I liked him that much. And Vancouver's GM at the time, what was his name? His GM at the time, Chris?
What
In,
was the year? I don't remember.
when they acquired him, doesn't matter. He come out and publicly said, yes, Murenberg is a very good prospect, but we cannot afford to wait 5 years for him.
Oh,
Which
when
is
they got
why they
Murenberg.
traded. Yeah. So I'm impressed with the kid. Um, always have been, even when he wasn't Bruins property. Um, I think he wants to come over. Uh, he's been to development camps. He was over this summer too, was he not, Chris? You were there.
Yeah, he was. He looked really good.
Yeah, yeah. So I think he wants to be here. I've had conversations with his family, uh, who have told me his goal is to play in the NHL. Um,
It was still
so we'll
Patrick
see.
Alvin.
No, it wasn't.
No, Jim Benning was before him.
I think it was Benning.
It would have been Jim Benning
So
because it was
there's
2021 draft.
contract. To answer your question, Kevin, there's contract situations to deal with, and the transfer agreement between the NHL and SHL. But I really think the Bruins will get it done.
With Murenberg in the pipeline, looking as good as he is, do you think he is a reason why they might look to move a right shot defenseman? If they feel they need to shake up the core by moving someone like a McAvoy or a Carlo to make the team better.
No, he's a couple of years away at least.
Okay.
Like,
just
I can see him being a Carlo replacement when Carlo's contract comes up. I can see that based on a few years of watching the kid. His team isn't doing very well right now. Let's see what they do when he comes back, because he makes a huge difference for them defensively and in transition. And right now they're suffering in both. So I know he's only one player, but when you're a top pair at the age of 20 playing 22 minutes a night against men, even if it is just the SHL, you make a difference.
Yeah, and Kevin wants to know, can Murenberg play both sides, which I don't know how good he'd be on the left, but I wouldn't want him to move over there if it drops his play at all.
I honestly, I've not seen him play the left, and I've watched him for a few years now.
Well, I just wanted to bring that up because I was listening to that pod, and I know Murenberg wasn't the greatest example, but he was just the one that popped into my head because of the restrictions they have in getting him over here now. So just wanted to plant that question out there for you, and we can dive more into Murenberg more on Tuesday.
I think it's what the person meant, Chris, is that Swedes or Europeans will be allowed to come over after playing a couple of games in Europe professionally, as long as they don't have a contract, will no longer have to sit out a suspension to play in the NCAA.
Do you think, and we can come back to this more on Tuesday if you want to do some digging on it, because you might have some folks that you can confirm some information with. Do you think it will be a limit of a certain number of games that they have that with, or is it going to just be a blank? Because it's considered a professional contract, and the language that I've been hearing is a professional contract with the promises of payment or future payment, which is why they can't just sign an ELC, go off to college, and then go to the NHL.
Right. Can't happen. Can't happen.
So that, if someone were to be drafted out of Sweden, they would not be able to sign their ELC, but they could come over and play in college, which is kind of the way it is now, right? They can opt to come over to college anyway and not play
Right.
pro in Sweden. So it may not change anything in that front.
We saw Christian Konstantinsky. I forget who owned his SHL rights in Sweden. Dress for a game and sit on the bench because his team, the team was short a defenseman. He didn't step on the ice, didn't play, had no professional contract, European or NHL, and came over to the USHL. If he had stepped on the ice in that game, and let's say none of the rules changed, and went to the NCAA next season with Boston College, he would have to serve a suspension.
If he stepped on the ice.
Even though there was no contract, which is what Oscar Yelvik had to do. I'm not talking NHL contract. I'm talking European contract.
Right.
It is a professional contract. Right.
Because if I remember correctly, when you told the story, didn't they have him? They had the contract ready in case he needed to go on the ice.
Yes.
They would have had him sign it and then jump over the boards.
Yeah.
Oh, and I looked it up. It looks like it was Frölunda of the SHL. That is the only. That's the only line that I see on here where it's 0.0 games played. But it shows that he played in 3 playoff games that year for them.
He dressed and sat on the bench.
So he did it a total of 4 times. No, he didn't do it in the regular season. He just did it in the playoffs. 3 times in the playoffs. Okay.
Yeah.
So
never stepped on the ice.
So, like I said, maybe it doesn't change anything, but it just, in my head, I immediately thought of Murenberg, and so I figured I'd run it by you. Kevin also adds, if Sweeney turns Studnicka into this kid and DiPietro, wow, killer trade.
Yeah, it was. I thought he won the trade as soon as it was announced.
Because you saw Murenberg in the deal.
Yeah, even if DiPietro didn't find his game again, I was satisfied with the deal. But DiPietro obviously returned to the form that I know him to have back in his Ontario Hockey League days. And you're adding Murenberg to it. So, you got to give PJ Axelson credit for that. Because PJ would know him very well. I just have to grab something off the wall to show Kevin. Hold on.
All right. I know we've got a little bit of time here. We have a little bit of extra time here, but we do have to round it out a little bit. Otherwise, we could keep doing this all night.
Hopefully, you'll be able to see this clearly, Kevin.
Kevin says he played PJ Axelson in ping pong.
Oh, good. Now, Kevin, if you send me your address, Kevin, if you send me your address, I will send you this.
Oh, is that an Oshawa Generals Jack Studnicka card?
Yeah. I will send it to Kevin if he sends me his address.
Kevin says he doesn't remember. So that means PJ Axelson crushed him.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin
had to stop to eat a burrito.
He wouldn't have stopped. He was just trying to eat the burrito the whole time. So, But anyways, we can keep going all night. I don't want to bore the bunch of people who are watching with us just going back and forth on other random things. But let's see. The legend of Jack Studnicka. Let's see. Kevin says, "Is that the Movember jersey included as well?"
You know what, Kevin? Come on the show next week, and I will send you the jersey.
Oh,
How's that?
Man. Yeah, you are crushing his soul right now. First you let him eat a burrito while he's on the show. Now you're offering him a jersey. Oh boy. So actually, speaking of jerseys,
should I grab the jersey for those that don't know?
Absolutely, show it off.
Hold on. This is the Sarnia Sting Movember jersey, signed by all the members of the Sarnia Sting. I forget what year it was, 2015. That includes Jacob Chikrin. So I know Kevin's a big fan. So,
well, if he doesn't want it, Dom, I'll make sure you have my address on that new box of cookies.
I would send it to you, Kevin. I would, if you came on the show next week.
If Kevin doesn't want it, I'll send. Can you hear me? Do we have you back audio-wise?
Yeah.
I was saying, if Kevin doesn't want it, I'll make sure my address is included in that fresh box of cookies.
Okay, but you're already on the show.
I know, but if he doesn't want it,
he wants it. I know he wants it.
He also wants that. You know what, Kevin? I will Venmo you the money for the burrito that you eat on the show too. Oh, he's hitting you in the family. It's a good piece to keep and give to your grandson.
Do you remember what tomorrow is, Kevin? Besides November 18th?
November 18th would be the only thing I know it to be. Is it your grandson's birthday?
No, it's mine.
It's your birthday. Well, happy early birthday to you.
63 tomorrow.
Well, 63. Congratulations. Happy birthday. Maybe I'll have to whip together a happy birthday intro for Tuesday.
2 years from retirement.
Not that you're counting down or anything, right?
No, I have been for, like last week, I knew the hours. So, I want to ask you a question because I don't think you commented on when I said it about Jonas Korpisalo. Do you think he should start tomorrow night?
I think he's the better option. I think he should start to see more time. I think whether you go Korpisalo or not, I would. How dumb is it for me to say maybe they should start going back to a rotation between the two?
I don't know if I would go to a full-on rotation. You can't be paying Swayman over $8 million a year to do a goalie rotation.
I don't disagree with that sentiment, but if Korpisalo's being your better goaltender, like you got to play the guy who's going to give you a chance to win. Kevin chimes in and says Korpisalo should start for at least the next 2 games.
Yeah, that's what I said at the start of the show.
Junior, is it Junior A. Cula or J. Racula chimes in and says, I think you go Sway this time.
I think it's just Dracula.
Maybe. I would go that route if it was a D, but you're probably right because you would be. I had their schedule.
I have to say this for Kevin. I believe scored again today.
Yes, McLaughlin did score today.
And he is now on a 5-game scoring streak.
As I say, I saw he scored yesterday, and I saw that he got another point today. I haven't had a chance to go back and look and whatnot. I've had some things that are slowing my days down a bit, and ending them early. But the good news is we have a few things in the works here for what's brewing in the Dom.Hockey pod. But Kev, to the call here, the question about Corpusalo, and let's see what's Kevin says. Give the kid a call up. Kid's got moxie. I think you go Corpusalo on Monday, and didn't Utah light us up with Swayman in net earlier this year? Was that one of the blowout games?
Sorry, what was it? What?
The Boston played Utah earlier in the season. Was that one of the big blowout games, or was that one of the closer ones?
Closer ones.
Let me see.
I give Corpusalo both starts and let Swayman work with Bob Basenza. Look, Jeremy Swayman is going to have to steal hockey games for this team. Has he stolen the game yet?
No, not really.
Corpusalo has, or at least given them the chance to win a hockey game that they have no business winning. Like yesterday, for example.
Yeah. Real quick, I did just track it down, Kevin. It was a 2-1. It was a Swayman start. Just looking at their schedule, they have Detroit the game after. So it's Monday, Columbus, Utah Thursday, Saturday against Detroit in Detroit. I almost feel like you go Corpusalo all three, give Swayman the week off, like you said, work with Bob Asenza, and start him against the playoff Canucks on Tuesday of next week.
If you start Swayman Saturday, it's still over a week off. If you go beyond that, you're well over a week, and that's too long.
Okay. I mean, either way, I mean,
because he didn't play Saturday. So Swayman's last start was Thursday.
True. No, that would make sense. For some reason in my head I was thinking he was, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Corpusalo got game 2 against the Blues, so yeah, and then you could do Swayman against the Canucks, and then give the Islanders to Corpusalo on the second night of back-to-back.
Yeah.
And then Friday night you have the game against Pittsburgh, which would be another. Well, Pittsburgh, with the way they're playing, that could go either way. So I would just plan it out and go to the back-to-back on Wednesday and call it a day.
This is the only time you'll ever hear me talk starters. Right now, the team is in such a mess. They need what's going to give them the best chance to win. And right now, as much as I hate to say it, Jonas Corposalo is the best chance to win.
Yeah. Yep. And
Let
we'll have to.
Swayman work through his issues with the Senza and get back on track because they're going to need him.
Yeah, they're absolutely going to need him going into December and beyond, especially as they fight for a playoff spot because they're not solidified in one. But it's going to be a heck of a year. Kevin says, "I want them to get a lottery pick, so play Sway."
Okay.
We'll talk more about next year's team when it becomes a lot more evident that we should be talking about next year's team. I think right now you have to focus on this year. What can you do to fix things for this year? They're in a pretty good spot already for next year with what did we say, 19 million in cap space plus. So we'll have plenty to go on that. Dom, I know we ran a bit longer than we normally do. Any final thoughts before we let the folks head to bed and try to hopefully enjoy a game tomorrow night?
No, I think we covered most of it. All I can say is go Bruins.